Hey my Investie Besties, welcome back to the channel. So on today's video, we're going to be talking all about how my family of 5 started this financial independence retire early plan, how we came about of it, where did we hear of FIRE from, and the important reason why you should start to craft a plan for your particular family. I know sometimes when you hear about FIRE and you decide, you know what, I would like to start this too because I want to achieve financial freedom. I would like to retire early or maybe become work optional or travel. And you need to have a way to execute this, okay? Because you have your why, but you got to get to your end goal. And then you need to figure out, okay, what's all of the in between? How am I going to put some realistic, actionable steps in place so that you can get from an idea or a goal to the end result? And so I wanted to share how my family of 5 plan on doing this in 9 years. And I know 9 years sound like such a long time away, but in the grand scheme of things, it seems like time has been going by so fast. I don't know about you guys, but it feels like time has just been flying, and we want to make sure that we have our money right, because if our money is not right and it's not in the place where it needs to be, we won't be able to achieve the goals that we set out for ourselves. And it doesn't even have to be anything far in the future like financial independence. It could be buying a house or paying off debt, maybe saving for your kids' college, those types of things. If we don't have any realistic, and I say that on purpose, realistic, actionable steps in place for our particular family and situation, it will not happen. And so I wanted to share that with you guys today. But before I get into the details, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. I would really appreciate it. Don't forget to share this video with a friend so that we can get more of this information out there. And thank you so much for 500 subscribers. So as you can see here, I'm looking down at my spreadsheet. So I created this spreadsheet when we first started talking about FIRE, my husband and myself. Now, we did not know about FIRE until, when I say recently, I'm talking about in the last few years. And we had heard about it from this channel called Our Rich Journey. And I'm sure you guys have probably heard about them. I talk about them sometimes on my channel, but they were really the inspiration, the eye-opening, the light bulb moment, the hallelujah moment for us, because we did not know that, number one, something like that existed, and number two, that it was attainable and that people like us, could achieve something like that. You usually achieve retiring early with someone who's really wealthy and can have that, but they showed that you don't have to have millions and millions of dollars in terms of salary each year, that you can use what you have, and if you apply it in places where your money will work for you, that you can achieve it too. And you can still be young enough to enjoy your children, your grandchildren, travel, start a business, just things that will bring you joy. And so when we heard about it and we watched several videos and we started doing research and we looked at our own financial situation, our own financial picture, we decided that, you know what, we want to be able to achieve FIRE as well. And we knew that it was going to take time, but I think the hardest thing for us was consistency. And that's why you hear me talking about it all the time. I talk about it a lot on my Instagram channel. And if you're not following me, information is in the description box below. But I'm always talking about consistency because that was the main thing that we had to overcome, is being consistent. It's really easy to start something, but to continue going down the line and for a few years is the challenge. And I feel like once we got into a good routine and this became a habit, we saw the progress kind of move so much quicker once we became consistent about this and focused on our goals. And so as you can see right here, we have our why. I always tell people you have to have a why for any goal that you have. If you want to pay off debt, if you want to pay for a wedding, if you want to buy a house, you have to have, with that goal, you have to have a why, and that could be your why. So if you want to buy a house, you want to pay off debt, but you just don't want to keep it generic in terms of, I want to save money. Okay, why do you want to save money? There should be some type of actionable why to all of your goals, and then have an end goal. So, okay, the idea is I want to retire early. That's great. That's wonderful. Okay, why do you want to do that? We want to give our children a great head start. We want to create generational wealth. And once you have your why and your end goal, then the in-between part is where my husband and myself had to really sit down with a pen and paper, and then I created this spreadsheet to put all this information here. And this was the plan. This is how we were going to get from point A to point Z. How we're going to get there, This is how we're going to get there. And I just created this very simple spreadsheet for my husband and myself to use. We filled it out maybe within the hour because we really had to sit and think about these things. And the great thing is that it's changeable. So if you need to go back and change your goals, because life happens, things happen, and that's okay. But as long as we have a plan, we can adjust, we can bend if we need to pause. That's okay. There have been many times where I couldn't invest something one month, or maybe I couldn't put as much as I wanted to one place, or maybe when paying off debt, when we were, paying off debt, we're not in debt anymore, consumer debt anyway. Sometimes I could put an extra $100 towards the interest. Other times I could put an extra $1,000 towards the interest. It's just wherever you have to be flexible in your plan, that is perfectly fine. Remember, guys, personal finance, say it with me, is personal, okay? So as you can see in this first box here is Fire Basics. So this is where my husband and I really started from ground one. What age do we want to retire? This is a question that I think a lot of people don't really sit down and think about. What age do you want to retire? I think sometimes, and we used to do this as well, we want to retire early, or we want to retire. Well, we had to put an age to that, okay? Do we want to retire at 45? Do we want to retire at 50, 55, 60, 65? Whatever the case is, you have to put an age to it. And then once you have an age to it, this is where the next thing that is important, the year. So whatever age you pick for yourself, also write down the year. This is what we had to do, because I think when we put the year in, it helped us to see, okay, we only have a certain amount of time to get this done in, which will help you create or craft your plan in more detail. So we knew, okay, we wanted to retire at 45. Okay, that's the year 2030. It's currently 2021. That's 9 years we have to do this. So, okay, we have 9 years. What are we going to do in terms of our money to get the most returns back on our investments? Moving on to income. So you want to retire early. You know the year and the age. That's great. How much do you want to live on? This is really, really important. You have to take inflation into account here. Now, there is the 4% rule that I talked about in our Fire video. I will link it up here in the eye in the sky if you wanted to go back and watch that. But you have to really sit down, look at your expenses, and really project out into the future. I know sometimes that can be so challenging, but do the best that you can. A lot of companies forecast, a lot of organizations, and I think we should do the same thing with our finances. We can't predict the future, but we can put some things in place to make sure that we are, positioned the best way possible in terms of what we want to do, what we want to be, what we want to achieve. And so the same with the income. When we retire, we know we want to have $100,000 to live on. Now, $100,000 in the year 2030 may not be the same equivalent, and it will not be the same equivalent to what it is now because of inflation. The cost of goods and services going up, and with the IRS and the government continuing to print, inflation, and I wouldn't even be surprised if hyperinflation came into the picture in the next few years. And so we figured $100,000 would be good. And the great thing about it is that when you have your Fire income, you need to account for any debts that you may have at that point. So we know we'll have some mortgages, maybe a car loan, but we want to continue to remain debt-free like we are now. We don't want any consumer debt. I know some people are really comfortable with that, with pursuing Fire and having debt. That is not us, but again, do what is best for you and your family. I know how it feels to have credit card debt and consumer debt and all of that type of stuff, and I just don't want it on my mental psyche. Moving on is Fire work status. So this is the thing, you can retire early, but for us, we're talking about retiring early from the 9 to 5. To be work optional, to start your own business, would be a passion project for us, to be able to volunteer, to be able to maybe teach on the side or do something like that, something that really brings us joy, that we don't have to really worry about the income side of it. This is what we're talking about when we talk about work status. We don't want to have to work for someone else 9 to 5. We're talking about doing things that we love. You can consider the same thing for yourself, and I'm just talking about the plan that we have set out for my family. And then Fire income sources. I talk about this often. You need to have money to live off of when you retire early, because you won't be able to draw from Social Security. You won't have your 401k or anything because you're still young in the government's eyes. And so if you plan on retiring in your 40s or even 50s, what are you going to live off of? And that's something that we have to think about as well. And as you can see here, we have cash, we have investments, we have rentals, we have our personal businesses, and then finally at the bottom of that, retirement accounts, especially as we age during the our FIRE years. And next is other. Now this is where you have to put down something that applies to your family specifically. We have a special needs son. So by the time we reach FIRE, our oldest daughter will be, out of the house on her own. And our youngest son he'll be a freshman in college, or he'll be like 19, 20. But our middle son, who has special needs, will most likely be living with us still. And we need to incorporate him in any plans that we have, whether we want to travel, whether we want to, retire early. And I think that's why our income is $100,000, because we still have to consider him as well. Would he be able to get disability? We don't know. But again, we don't want to really focus or rely on the government, because we just don't know what will happen. So that's why we are taking the onus on ourselves to have our money, return and give us the most it can, so that we can factor him in as well, because he still has to eat, he still needs his health insurance, he still needs clothes and things like that. And so those are things that we have to factor in to our plan. Next is our FIRE bucket goals. So these are just things that we have here that we would love to do. Let's say if our investments really took off, if our businesses really took off, then these are some of the things that we would love to do. Buy a vacation home in Florida. We go to Florida pretty much every year. We did not go last year because of the pandemic, but we love Florida. We don't want to live there, but we love to have a vacation home to go there, every now and then. Next is to establish a scholarship and start a foundation for special needs children and disadvantaged low-income children. We would love to travel to 4 continents. We've been to, I would say 2 already. No, 3 continents, I'm sorry. But we would love to travel to 4. We will also love to purchase an apartment building. That's like a rental bucket goal. We have 2 currently. And so to purchase an apartment building and have a property manager manage that and just be able to get the passive income from that would be awesome. I would love to write a book. I talked about this before. We would love to retire with $5 million. Our goal is between $2 to $3 million. I think we will be able to achieve that. And then, of course, our paid off primary home, not our rentals, our primary home. We're not house hacking or anything. We want our primary home paid off, so that way, when it's time for my husband and myself to die, our special needs son, or just in the family, there's always a house, a home to come back to that's paid off. All you got to do is just pay the taxes. And then our FIRE strategy. So this is really important here, because this is telling my husband and myself how to keep the momentum going in our investments. So the first thing is be diversified. I talk about this all the time. You don't want to have your 401k and your Roth and your SEEP and a Robinhood account, and you got the same thing in all of those accounts. So you have Vanguard, VOO, and all of those accounts. That's not diversified. Yes, you have a diversified different types of accounts, but you're invested in the same thing in all those accounts. So we have mutual funds in our 401k, we have dividend stocks in our Robinhood, we have growth stocks in our Interactive Brokers. So this is what I'm talking about in terms of being diversified. Next is create multiple streams of passive income. You have YouTube, you can sell products, you have, rental income. These are all things that you can do to create passive streams of income. Also, and this is key for us, saying no to lifestyle creep. It can be very easy, especially with social media, to buy things because other people have them. And the best way to stop your progress and to get back into debt again is to, succumb to lifestyle creep or keeping up with the Joneses. Remember, the Joneses are broke. Next is to stay away from debt. We would like to remain consumer debt free. And if we have to get into debt because things happen, sometimes life hits you, then having a plan to get out of debt is important. Finding joy in simple things, going on picnics, having family nights, watching movies together. Those are really inexpensive or free things that we can do. And this is helping to keep our expenses low so we can send more money to our investments. Also document our journey, hence Mommy T is just showing people with real numbers what's possible if you put your plan into action and just be consistent over time. And then the last one is just really much self-explanatory for us, and that's just to invest often. We put money into our accounts, invest that money, leave it alone. buy and hold, and that's pretty much it. So this is how we started our financial independence journey. Leave a comment down below. Are you starting your journey? If you have you considered any of the things that I talked about in this video? Leave a comment down below. I love talking with you guys. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel and the video if you haven't. Hit the little bell notification button so you don't miss the upload. And next time, I'll see you in the next one.